This video is brought to you by Hiawatha Hobbies. Hiawatha has you covered for all your model railroading needs, whatever scale or era you model. They have everything from Z to G. Be sure to check them out at the link in the description. The EMD SD90MAC was introduced in 1995 along with the SD80MAC. The SD90MAC was designed to use the new 16-cylinder H engine, while the SD80MAC was designed to use the 20-cylinder version of the existing 710G engine. However, technical problems with the 6,000 horsepower engine resulted in the first locomotives being shipped with a 4,300 16-cylinder engine. These locomotives were given the informal designation SD9043MAC by railroads that purchased them, with the option to re-engine them with 6,000 horsepower engines when they became available. This upgrade program, however, was never taken advantage of by SD90MAC buyers due to the reliability issues with the newer engine. Over 400 SD90MAC locomotives fitted with the 4,300 horsepower engine were built. In 1996, EMD entered full production of their 6,000 horsepower 16-cylinder H engine, and all SD90MACs made from then on used that for its prime mover. Locomotives fitted with this engine are referred to as SD90MAC-H locomotives. Later versions of the SD90MAC-H feature a Phase 2 cab with a new nose which offers higher visibility from the cab than the old nose. The SD90MAC-H did not prove popular with railroads, and less than 70 were built, including the EMD demonstrator units. Since the SD90MAC-H had such a large prime mover, it didn't offer the same operational flexibility as smaller units, limiting its possible customer base to only the largest railroads. Since the H engine was a new design, it hadn't reached the same level of reliability as EMD's previous engines. The low reliability on such a large engine was an especially bad combination, since the loss of one engine in a train meant the loss of a larger percentage of pulling power than had a smaller engine failed. In the end, the SD90MAC-H was only delivered to two railroads, the Union Pacific and the Canadian Pacific. As soon as the lease expired, UP retired all of the SD90MACs on their roster. These units have moved from railroad to railroad and are now either scrapped, in storage, or used as slave units for FMG in Australia. One very cool thing about this model is that the roof is held on with two small neodymium magnets, and you can remove the roof to access the cab interior should you want to add cab figures. Let's start with some of the details on this locomotive. On the front of the locomotive, you have a McHenry scale knuckle coupler, MU cables, and an air hose right here. Right above that, you have a coupler cut bar, which goes across the entire length of the front, wire grab irons on top of the snowplow, LED illuminated ditch lights, and then the handrails. The handrails on this model seem to be much sturdier than previous Athern handrails, which is very good. Moving on to the nose, you have grab irons on each side of the nose, and then grab irons that go up to the top, along with the door here with the small window, and then the LED illuminated headlight. On top of the nose, you can also see that there's sanding hatches on each side, a grab iron here and a grab iron here. All of the grab irons on this locomotive are metal, and they look very good. Moving up to the top, you have separately applied etched metal windshield wipers, LED illuminated number board, and grab irons right above the number board. Moving to the side of the locomotive, you have the cab windows, which look very good, with a separately painted black armrest. The EMD logo right here is very sharp and crisp, along with the rest of the markings on this model. Here's an etched metal see-through vent, which is very well done, and there are grab irons right above that to access the top of the locomotive. This model is covered with etched metal parts. All of these vents here are etched metal and are very, very good looking. And then there's an etched metal walkway platform right here, which I'll show you in a second. Below that, there's all of this detail in here with the small decals and warnings all over the place. Here you can see that etched metal see-through walkway platform, which looks very good. Moving towards the rear of the locomotive, you can see the EMD 90 logo and the horn right here, which seems to be bent up just a little bit. Here's the radiator section, and all of the vents on this locomotive seem to be painted just a little tiny bit to make them a different color than the rest of the body, to make them stand out a little bit. Underneath the radiator section, there are tons of little decals and warnings all over the place. Here's the dynamic brake housing right here, which is on the rear of most of the larger EMD locomotives, which is a kind of interesting orientation. Here's the very large see-through vent, and then there are also see-through vents right here on the end. On the back of the locomotive, here's a McHenry scale knuckle coupler, bare knuckles, MU cables, and an air hose. There's also a coupler cut bar that goes all the way across. It might be kind of hard to tell, but the coupler cut bar on this side is just a little bit bent inwards. It looks like it might have gotten bumped in shipping somehow. Moving up a little bit, here's the sand filler hatch. As for roof detail, there's not really a whole lot going on. There's wire grab irons right here along with lift rings. As I mentioned earlier, the cab roof does pop off, revealing a very well detailed interior. Here's the exhaust stack, which look very good and look like they are slightly painted to make them just a little bit different different color than the rest of the body. Here's the horn, which looks very good, but again is tilted just a little bit upwards. And here are the radiator vents, which are see-through and have separately applied fan blades on the inside. And then here's the dynamic brake housing, which has wire grab irons on top of it, and this fan right here seems to be much more see-through and looks much better than the older Athern dynamic brake hatches. Underbody detail is very good. You have a ground light right here, which is lit by a small LED. There's lots of decaling all around, and there's tons of separately applied brake lines and traction motor cabling, sanding lines, and all sorts of other details. Moving towards the fuel tank, there's a small decal right here, and all of these are painted red, just like the prototype would be. And you can see just a little bit of that traction motor cabling that runs the entire length of the locomotive, in various different locations. This model does have see-through steps, which look very good, and is probably one of my favorite features on any locomotive. As I mentioned before, the handrails on this model are very well done, and I think that they're going to hold up for many years to come. One thing that I noticed when looking through the prototype pictures of EMD90 was there's a large net right in this area on the handrail. You can see it here in this picture. I'm not entirely sure what that is for and why it's there, but the Athern model does not have it. I don't think that that big net is supposed to be there. I think that it was added maybe for safety reasons when the locomotive was being displayed or something. I can't seem to find anything on why it's there, so that's just one interesting thing that I found when looking at the pictures of this locomotive. Here's a nice view of the lighting package in the dark, including this small ground light, which looks very good. All of the lights on this model are LED, they look very good, and they are a nice, warm color. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.